Welcome to Western Technical College Business and Industry Services. This video, along with other training opportunities from Western BIS, are designed to help employees stay informed on the latest trends in today's changing workplace. To learn how Western can support your business, visit us at westerntc.edu/BIS.
Welcome, everyone. I'm glad to see that we've got a small crowd with us today to talk about customer service. My name is Brandy Ortry. I'm the current Dean of Learning at Western Technical College in the division called Academic Excellence and Development, where we help train the faculty at the college on how to teach, and we help them write curriculum and use instructional technology and that kind of thing. So I'm happy to be here with you today. A little bit of background on why would I be presenting on customer service? Well, certainly in our current job, our team does provide service throughout the college to the faculty, both full-time and part-time faculty. But prior to working at Western, I've worked in the customer service industry for quite some time. I did work at a call center where we did primarily over the phone support all over the country, in the US and Canada and part of Australia. So we've done some phone customer service. In addition, I have worked in the industry of restaurants and such, and have done some of the face-to-face customer service that maybe many of you have also done. So just that's a little bit of background. I also have been a trainer on customer service in some of those past jobs as well. So today I'm here to just kind of share those experiences that I have in my past jobs and give you a few helpful hints and tips for you to use going forward. Right. So just a quick overview here. We're going to talk a little bit about who your customers are, your experiences as a customer. Again, a good reflection on what it means to be a customer, to consider your own experiences. Communication as part of customer service, very important. Some of the elements of the messages that we send, both verbally and written. And talking about, is quality important? How do we define quality in customer service? Locus of control, we'll talk a little bit about that. Effective communication, kind of building upon the overall communication topic. And then importance of customer complaints. Definitely something that isn't always the best part of the job, but definitely important. And listening, how important listening is to the customer service side of things. Okay, so as you're looking at this slide and kind of thinking about the topic that we're on today, consider who your customers are. You know, I think a lot of times we say, yes, I'm a customer when I go to a restaurant or I go to the grocery store, and those kinds of customers. But it isn't just about external customers, it could be internal customers, right? So if we think, in my example at the college, some of our customers might be the faculty that we're helping. In some cases, our external customer might be the employer that we are preparing the student for the job market. So at Western, it might be that. If you're in a service industry, working at a restaurant, your customers may be those that are coming in to eat at your establishment. But also I'd like you to just consider what it means to be an internal customer. So if I work at a restaurant and I'm a manager in a restaurant and I have a customer who comes in to eat at the restaurant, they are an external customer. But who are my internal customers? If I'm a manager at that restaurant, some of my internal customers perhaps are the waiters and waitresses, the cooks in the kitchen, and how am I helping them? How am I providing service to them? So want you to kind of think about, as we go through the next few slides, not just who external customers are, but who internal customers are. And then why does customer service even matter? Wow, that's a big question. That's a really big question. And it matters for so many reasons. It matters for remaining viable from a standpoint of what your company can afford to do, because The more customers you have to sell that product or to sell that service helps feed the budget that you have to do more, to grow a company, et cetera. And it also matters because of word of mouth, right? It matters for your reputation. It matters also internally in job satisfaction. That's been my experience, is that the times when I'm able to provide the service in the way that makes my job feel fulfilling, and when I'm able to receive from others around me who are providing services that I need to do my job better, I have more job satisfaction when that service is provided. So kind of consider about how you play into that internal customer sometimes and the external customer. Okay, wow. I like the word wow. Because really, have you ever said wow when you got an experience in service? I know I have. It doesn't happen every time, right? It doesn't happen every time that we're really wowed by the service that we receive. And when we aren't wowed, we might just be even keel and say, it was okay, I'm not going to complain about it. But the opposite of wow, that was great, is wow, that was horrible. And wow, that was horrible is going to negatively affect your customer base going forward, right? Because word of mouth and that kind of thing can happen. So we want to focus on the wow, the really making an impression on our customers in a positive way. So stop and think for a minute. What have you done? Or maybe observed someone else doing to wow a customer? I can give an example at my workplace right now. And actually, we've been working at home. My team has been working at home since the pandemic started, but on a normal situation when we're on campus, occasionally a student might walk into our office, and we're not a student-facing office, but they're looking for a different office on campus. So I could tell them to go down the stairs and take a right and go to the next building. And in the next building, you're going to go up 3 stairs. But if I have time to really wow that customer, that student, to really help them, I'm going to take the 10 minutes to walk them there, right? So, wow, they were stressed out. They were going to be late for their first class ever. And I actually gave them a smile and said, hey, I'll walk over with you, and got them to the exact place they needed to be. Again, hoping they're, breathing a sigh of relief. So, sometimes it could be even just the fact that somebody's been searching for something in your store. They're in your store, they really need this thing. They have to fix the plumbing at home and they can't find the right pipe, and they're really not familiar with what to do with this plumbing. And if you're working in that store and you can help calm their nerves, get them the right product they need to solve their problem, again, they're going to walk out saying, wow, I'm going to go back to that store again because they were so helpful. And that brings repeat business, which is an important part of customer service as well. So I'm going to share this quote with you. Once a human being has arrived on this earth, communication is the largest single factor determining what kinds of relationships he or she makes with the others and what happens to him or her. By Virginia Satir. Stop and think about that for a minute. Think about how important communication is. Again, it says the single factor determining what kinds of relationships he makes with others. So relationships are a wide thing, right? Part of it's the customer service. It could be your work relationships. It could be home relationships. It could be community-wide relationships. But when you think about how important communication is to every relationship that you have in your life, yeah, it's pretty impactful. And that's why this information is so important. So in part of breaking down what communication is, I wanted to just share with you kind of this model and the research behind the elements of a message. So if you think about words, tone, and visual, right? So I'm talking to you today, you're hearing my words, there's a certain tone in my voice, and visually, and we are on web conference, you can see me, right? Face to face. But on the telephone, you may not see me, you might only have my words and tone. Do you see what happens to the percentage here? So when we're face to face, tone is 38% of the message. When we look at on the telephone, when you don't have that visual of me anymore, you might infer more about my tone, both positively or negatively. So that's something to keep in consideration. And then email, right? So email is 100% words. And so what can you do in the element of that message in email to make sure that it's effective? You know, sometimes we have to insert more of a message. What I would say to you in 3 sentences, if we were face to face, might take me a longer paragraph if I'm sending an email, because I want to make sure that I use more words to convey the tone and what I need and make sure there's no misunderstanding. So it isn't as easy sometimes. And face to face, when I was putting this, the updates to this particular presentation today, that I've used many of these concepts before, I started thinking how face to face kind of melds a little bit into some of the web conferencing we've all been doing, like we're doing right now, and how our team on the college is doing its web conferencing. It's really nice when we can get a video conference versus a non-video, right? Or to just do a quick video meeting for, 15 minutes to figure something else out versus it would take me 15 minutes or more to write the email, go back and forth 20 times to make sure we're on the same page. So I think even in our current situation right now with the pandemic, there's a lot that can be said about what we do in the elements of a message and how we're conveying it. And how web conferencing has been kind of a mode of face-to-face that has been more current lately. Okay, so is quality important? Quality, yeah. I mean, the quality of our communications helps create that impression, and we're trying to make a good impression on our coworkers, our customers, both internal customers again and external customers, as we talked about. So quality is definitely important. Okay, so on this particular slide, oops, go back. I am not filling this in for you. I want you to reflect just a little bit on your own locus of control. So think about a time that you maybe had a difficult situation with a customer. Maybe it was a complaint, something that was just frustrating and hard to solve. And when you stop and think about that, part of what I do to process, and part of the process of coming to an answer and a response, is to consider what is in your locus of control. What can you control and what don't you control? Okay. So you can control your knowledge of the situation and sharing the facts. What you cannot control is the emotions sometimes of what someone else is undergoing, the work that they specifically did. You may not be able to control that. But within the locus of control, when we say we can control this part of what I do, but I cannot control this other part, what we can do is have some influence. There's always something we can do to try to influence. And I'm just going to go back for a minute on the influencing standpoint. So, for example, if I am working with someone who says, I can't figure out this problem. I can't figure out how to put this schedule together to make sure all my staff get the right amount of hours. I can't figure it out, right? So what's within your control? You can ask for help, right? You can influence the situation, the frustration of that person who's having trouble by asking some questions to get to some type of, maybe it's a compromise, maybe it's a solution. So the working together, the collaboration, but asking questions within that is going to be helpful. Okay, WIIFM. It's not a radio station. It is what's in it for me. So what's in it for me, right? So just thinking about who you are within some of the scenarios that we've started to talk about. I wanted to share with you, many of you have heard the golden rule, right? So treat others as you would like to be treated. This is what I want, so I'll give everyone the same thing. Do you see how that translates possibly in a way that's maybe not exactly what we wanted? So Dr. Tony Alessandra has a different take on this, which is the platinum rule. Treat others as they want to be treated. Or another way of saying, let me first understand what they want, and then I'll give it to them. But it's hard to give someone something that you don't first fully understand, right? So do you see the difference here? And again, it's semantics, it's words. But if you were to look at these two again and just reflect on what they're really saying, others may not want to be treated like I'm treated, and that I'm okay with being treated. How my team communicates with me, we have learned how each other like to communicate, right? Right now it's really difficult because we're doing a lot of virtual communication, and it might not be some of our preferences to do that, right? And so in some cases, I have folks that would rather talk on the phone. Someone else might rather do a web conference because they really need that face-to-face. So kind of considering the treat others as they want to be treated. And again, I think an interesting take as we're sometimes struggling with communication during the pandemic in the workplace. Customer complaints. These are never a fun part of our job. And again, when I say customer, I want you to consider both internal and external customers as you're looking at this slide and what we're talking about. So encourage your customers to voice their complaints, right? You can't fix it if you don't know. Customer complaints are what give you that opportunity to restore a relationship. Because if they don't complain and they leave and just never come back, you've lost that customer, right? So you actually do want to hear their complaints. And finding the right avenue to do that is sometimes hard. We've all seen customer complaint cards. Maybe it's a follow-up email. Sometimes there's something on a receipt from a restaurant that you can provide. But again, if you want to help that business or that person that is providing you that service, then it is helpful for them to hear why something wasn't ideal for you as the customer too. Consider this. For every complaint you receive, the data shows that there are at least another 26 other silent, dissatisfied customers. Again, how do we reach them? How do we reach those people if they aren't complaining? Dissatisfied customers tell an average of 10 other people about their experience. Wow. Is that going to change that person's perspective on whether or not they want to be a customer there? And again, think of the term customer very broadly. In my current job, my customers are most of the time either my teammates or other faculty. For others at our college, it might be the students are their customer or other internal employees. If you are an owner of a restaurant, it could be the folks coming in to eat. It also could in some ways be some of your suppliers that you work with, right? In a manufacturing situation, it could be the person who's waiting for your product so that they can do the next part of the job on the manufacturing line, right? So if something happens and something's going wrong and you don't complain, you actually can have a backup of that service, of that product, because it's done incorrectly, it needs to be redone, etc. So that communication and complaints and processing those complaints and solving them is a really important part. So the good news is, as I've mentioned, you should listen to those complaints because it does increase your ability to keep that customer. And the data shows that 95% of your customers will do business with you again if you resolve their problem both quickly and fairly. And if you do that, they will refer others to you, because there's something to be said about not just getting good service being done, but when your poor service or poor product is resolved in a positive way, it really does say something about you and your customers and your company and your processes. So that can actually be a benefit. So listening, we said, listen to those customers, take that feedback, use the feedback in a positive way. Listening is the key to excellent customer service. And sometimes it means listening to more than just those words that they're saying, right? There's more to it. Many of us have had some education, in writing and reading and speaking, but how many of you have taken a class on listening? We don't always do that. Listening is part of our everyday. It's part of maybe many trainings or other classes or job preparedness that you've done, but it isn't always brought to the forefront the same way as other trainings. We all have a skill in listening at some level. We need to continue working on it, right? Certainly there are times that can be more frustrating to listen. Sometimes the topic is more difficult for us to be engaged in and to listen. But it is a skill and it can be learned, it can be improved. It takes practice and patience. Some days it's easier to practice our listening skills than others, but reflecting on that is important too. Asking yourself, why was it hard for me to listen in that meeting today? Why was it hard for me to listen to what that customer said when they came into my store? And reflecting on that and how you might respond differently in the future. And again, just sort of wrapping up the topic here on listening, but hearing is passive. So when I hear something, it's passive. It's just processing its information. Sometimes it's selective hearing. So I can hear something, right? I can hear someone talking over here about maybe what they want me to do or what to improve. But if I'm listening, I'm not passive. Listening is about being an active participant in what that person is saying and usually making a plan. Right? As you're listening and you're actively listening, you're either making a plan for how to respond, or you're maybe making a plan, taking some notes on, because you're listening on what they want you to do next. So it's really more active when we truly, truly are listening. What are some of those barriers to listening? We all have them and it depends on the day, right? So we might have some negative feelings. Sometimes those negative feelings are tied to a previous situation, maybe with that person or that topic. Hunger can be a barrier to listening. Hopefully you're all listening and maybe eating your lunch while you're doing this, so you're not hungry, right? So you can take in this information today, but there's truth to that, right? If we're hungry and we're distracted and, are we really able to listen? To-do lists So why would to-do lists be a barrier to listening? Sometimes it is hard to both take notes and to listen at the same time. So consider too in your own situations. If it's a larger meeting, sometimes you can delegate someone to take the notes so others can be listening and add to those notes later perhaps. But consider kind of your situation, and maybe you can record something too. Maybe you dictate notes if it's a really very important meeting that you don't have someone else to engage and take notes with. Disagreement. When we disagree, it's hard to listen. Unfortunately, sometimes we want to be right, and that is a barrier to listening. If we're tired, right? If we're tired, it's harder to listen, it's harder to engage and stay focused. Noise can be an issue. It's been very interesting in the pandemic, sometimes working from home, several of you and myself too. There may be noises that we can't always stop. My dog was quiet all day until we were starting the webinar, and then I could hear her barking, so it can be a barrier to listening. Luckily, she must be sleeping out there now. It can be uncomfortable as well. Sometimes it's hard to hear, right? So we don't always want to hear what we do need to listen to. And then other barriers could be language or jargon. In particular, from a language standpoint, it could be everything from an actual, somebody speaking a different language that you don't know, but it also could be the jargon, right? So every institution, every job seems to have its own jargon. We actually at one point at Western created an acronym list to share with new employees, because it's almost like a foreign language when you start somewhere and people start using all these different acronyms and you don't even know what they're for and you're overwhelmed already and you're a new employee. So that kind of jargon and acronym can be a barrier to listening too. All right, just kind of want to make this point here again, kind of from the research. We speak approximately 125 words a minute, and we listen to 418 words a minute, but we think about 2,000 words per minute. So think about that, right? If our minds are in this like 2000 and someone's only speaking 125, it's hard sometimes to remain focused, right? Remain focused. And so your mind's going to wander. What can we do to help keep our focus when we're working with our customers? Some of that kind of eye contact, really practicing and being focused, even though we might have heard that same complaint over and over again, or the same question about where is that product on the shelf. So we just really need to remain focused when working with our customers. When we're trying to succeed with our customers and help them and make sure that we do a good job of interacting, we want to make sure we do it quickly. Sometimes that's face-to-face. Other times it might be an email request that you get. How quickly can we contact that customer? That part's important. Our greeting, welcoming words, having that upbeat tone, not being too hurried in your pace where it sounds like I don't have enough time for you, but I'm going to explain this really quickly. And having that eye contact. So I want to greet you with welcoming words, really upbeat. I want to take my time. I want to have that eye contact with you to really engage. We want to make sure that we listen and don't interrupt. Sometimes that's hard, right? And it depends on the topic too. Sometimes we want to make sure to just get the answer out there, but there is some value in listening to your customer and doing the right timing of when to respond. Express empathy. Words and tone really matter. And empathy isn't always the word sorry. It could be something more like, I can appreciate that this is difficult for you and I want to work through it together. That's very different than just saying, I'm sorry, we'll fix it. There's a different tone, there are different words to engage that customer in the next steps and to sometimes calm that customer as well. You can use the customer's name. This can be overdone. We don't want to sound, trite that way by saying, Ken, you should do this. And Ken, thank you for coming in today. And Ken, that was really great. Ken is my husband's name, by the way, so I can just use that. But use the customer's name as appropriate and say, I think, Julie, what we can do to help you today is, right? So it's more of a rapport building of the customer's name, okay? Tell them you will help. And sometimes that's really hard for people because they don't want to say they can help and then they can't, right? But is there always something you can do to help? Usually, about 98% of the time, because what you're doing to help might even be referring them to someone else, getting them to the right place, because you can't help, but someone else can help and you know how to get them there. So it's okay to say, I will help you. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to call Julie and Julie's going to get back to you by noon. So you're part of the help, right? You're part of the referral to help. And asking permission to gain more information. Sometimes when there's a really frustrating situation, we need to let our customers vent that a little bit. And at the right time, we can say, is it okay if I get some more information from you? This is what I understand you explained, and I want to make sure that I can get more information so I can follow through on this. So asking that permission kind of sways the tone of the conversation back to a helpful state. Okay, and being courteous, please and thank yous, they go a long way. Keeping that helpful attitude and tone, remain calm, asking questions, repeat the answers if necessary to verify. Repeating is oftentimes where clarity comes, so that part can be very important. We talked a little bit about jargon, avoiding jargon and negative words. Jargon in your own institution or acronyms, etc., can be confusing to your customers. Be knowledgeable, accurate, specific, and proactive. Sometimes if you're not the person with the most knowledge, you'll just need to connect people with the person that is in that area. Speak clearly with proper volume, whether that's face-to-face, over the phone, or web conferencing, etc. It's always good to summarize the next steps and get agreement. So when I say that, I'm saying, okay, here's what we talked about. The next step's going to be this, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then kind of wrap that up with, does that sound accurate to you? If you say that to the customer, they might say, no, I really think that step 3 needs to happen sooner. And unless you get that agreement and ask that question at the end, you might not have that clarity. And then a closing phrase. Is there anything else I can help you with? Because as much as we think we might have solved everything in that moment that they originally asked us, which we maybe did, there might still be something else lingering. You might have done such a good job and they realized, oh, this person really is helpful. And so if you ask them if there's anything else you can help them with, they might say, well, yeah, there's something else at your company I wanted to do and I haven't been able to get through. And you might not be the answer for them, but helping them, again, remember, means you might get them to the right person. You might get them to the solution, even though you don't have the solution. All right, so taking action is kind of summarized here. Consider some of the takeaways from today, some of the ideas that I mentioned to you, just different words and tone that you can use. And then from all this information that we've been sharing, consider setting a goal. And many of you have heard of SMART goals. But they are really a great structure for helping you with that next step. So if there was one thing today that you're like, yes, that's something I've struggled with in the past, and I am going to try to do it differently. I'm going to try to respond differently to that complaint that I receive next time, right? So what is my goal? What is my specific goal? And how am I going to measure that I achieved that goal when I try this after this training? Is it attainable? It's okay to start small and not go back and say, oh, I need to do 20 different things. Start with one, right? Start with one attainable part of that goal. It also needs to be realistic. You may have to build up to your ultimate goal, but start realistic with something that is, again, attainable and timely. It's great if you can make small steps soon. So making sure that it's both small steps soon so you can achieve something and it's attainable, but also that it's timely to whatever the topic is, right? Perhaps there is a product launch coming up soon, and it would be really timely to make sure to meet up with that employee soon to make sure that there's some positive influence on that product launch.
Thank you for viewing this video from Western Technical College Business and Industry Services. Learn more about the hundreds of training and development opportunities available for your employees at westerntc.edu/BIS.